Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Morton. I worked for state corrections for 3.5 decades and came upon Desert Waters and the fatigue to fulfillment class actually after I had retired. Um, I, of course, wish I had had this knowledge and information much earlier than that. And one of the things I'll say is that as we complete training with employees around the country, around the world, really, that's one thing they always say is, "Oh, I wish I'd had this earlier. I wish I'd had this when we started." It's so built in, the consequences and challenges of the profession are so built in and so inherent and happen everywhere. In terms of what do staff need in regard to mental health challenges, well, the first is to break through denial. Denial is old school. It never worked. It doesn't work now. I remember running into a fellow employee, a guy known for a long time. He was now retired, just like I was, at a grocery store, and he said, "What are you doing now, Greg?" And as soon as I explained corrections fatigue to him, I could see by the look in his eye that he had reinterpreted pretty much his entire adult work life. And he even said, "Oh, that's what happened to officer so and so. That's what happened to captain so and so." Yep, that's exactly right. And we went through our whole careers, obviously, in the state of denial without knowing that, well, we thought that the challenges were what made us stronger, not what made us weaker, which is actually in the long run, and from a mental health perspective, very much the case. So the line that you frequently hear about, you can't solve a problem until you've identified it correctly, that relates to denial. The fatigue to fulfillment class is so clear about the consequences of the profession that denial is not a possibility. It's just goes away. Um, and the challenges actually become something to be proud of rather than something to deny and walk away from. And what that does then is create an opportunity for social support, like the short conversation I had with the retiree friend of mine in the grocery store. Now we're linked in a particular way that we never were before. And any research that you can find on resilience or recovering from trauma or bouncing back or any of those kind of things, it will always mention that social support is one of the key elements to bouncing back, one of the key elements to resilience. It anyway, that's one of the important parts of the corrections profession, is that connection we have with each other. But by breaking through the denial and then emphasizing that connection based on the challenges that we faced, is a huge step in the right direction. We can now talk about things, including ourselves, that we didn't want to talk about before. And that's not easy, but the fatigue to fulfillment class, I would say, makes it easy. There's a lot of individual activity and work, along with small group work, that it just opens up the dialogue without any question. One of the things that's kind of a I don't know, misunderstanding maybe, is that we think that trauma only relates to violence, injury, or death, and that we have to experience it personally before it has any impact on us. And that's not the case. Trauma is around us 100% of the time in the corrections environment, whether it's the events that cause the offenders to be under our supervision, and then when we know about those, we assign them to those individual, and then you can't look at that person in a different way, or you do look at that person in a different way. Anyway, there is vicarious trauma constantly occurring in our profession. And to break through the denial of that is just as important. What that means is that it relates to every employee, every level, every assignment. administrative staff who do records, offender records. Well, they're going to have crime pictures. They're going to have the police report. Counselor, of course, is going to go into deep understanding of the individual's background, and there's just no way to escape the vicarious trauma that accumulates day after year, whatever you want to say, decade after decade. There's just no way to escape that vicarious trauma. It's around us all the time. When we do training, that's what we do training on. We do training on how to protect yourself, how to keep yourself safe. Here, watch this video. This is what you need to do. Like I said, read this report, read this file. Imagine if you were in that situation. Well, imagining if you were in that situation is a good thing. We need to keep ourselves safe, but we also from now on, need to recognize that that's an injection of vicarious trauma in the lives and careers of everybody involved. That is not a little thing. I mean, maybe it would be a little thing if it just happened once, but it happens in our profession, in our careers, time after time after time after time, and in fact becomes what do I want to say, kind of the default environment that you walk into when you go to work. You know that there's a potential for trauma, and you're always looking around every corner, and that purely neurological sense rewires our brain. The structure of our nervous system changes because of how often we are on guard, how often we have to, that's what hypervigilance is you're on guard all the time, and it stays with you. And the old line we had about leave it at the gate, I think neurologically that's impossible. I don't think that is, after you've been in the business for a while, you're carrying all of those neurological connections around with you everywhere you go. The fatigue to fulfillment is a two-part course. And the first part, the fatigue part, is about that, breaking through that denial and creating social support and recognizing we're all in it regardless of what our particular job or experiences are. We're all in it together. But that's only half the class. And what I want to emphasize is that where the class ends, the last half of the day is all about fulfillment. And it's individually tailored. There are exercises that come from trauma methodology that psychologists use. Our course author is a PhD psychologist with a trauma background, and what she did was apply what she knew about trauma treatment to the corrections environment, and it fits perfectly. And so what that allows us to do, we break through the denial, and then we ask staff, what are you going to do about it? And that sounds maybe a little callous if I put it that way, but there's a whole room full of people now who are supporting each other, assuming the training is done live in a classroom, who are supporting each other. I've seen people, they'll do some small group work and they'll end up with their ABCs about what they're going to do differently, and they'll have it up on a flip chart page, and then they'll all get up and sign it. That's how committed they are to, this is their new Declaration of Independence, I guess you could almost literally say. It creates a conversation that is absolutely necessary. Since I started getting involved with Desert Waters, I have come very clearly to the belief that this is the future of our profession, without any doubt, that being able to recognize the challenges that are inherent to the profession, and then intentionally build in the resilience, because the neurological patterns work the other way too. You build in those patterns of resilience, and yes, the structure of your brain, the neurological connections change, but they change for the better. And that's what the fulfillment class does, begins that process for people. It's like I said, I've never had a class where they didn't say, I wish we'd had this when we were new, when we were younger. And so that's just, I guess, to underline one last thought is, if you're considering this program, think about the new employees. Think about the people who are coming in now and what their career is going to be like with or without the fatigue to fulfillment. Makes a huge difference. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.